Your home is not cluttered because you own too much. It is cluttered because you have never been told which 12 things are actually doing the damage. Not the obvious things. Not the pile of mail or the closet you keep meaning to clean out. 12 specific objects, hiding in plain sight in almost every home in the West, that Japanese minimalist households removed generations ago without ever calling it a trend. I removed all 12. 30 days later my home did not just look different. I felt different inside it. Stay with me until number 9, because number 9 is the one that surprised me most, the one I was most certain I would never give up. And number 12 is not really an object at all. It is the decision underneath all the others, and once you understand it, the first 11 will make a different kind of sense. Let's start at the beginning. Before we get into the 12 things, I want to explain why removing objects changes how a home feels at all, because this is the part most decluttering content skips entirely. Western decluttering culture tells you to get rid of what doesn't spark joy. That is a feeling-based test, and feelings are inconsistent, which is part of why most decluttering doesn't last. Japan approaches the home differently, through a principle called Ma, the meaningful empty space between things. Ma is not absence. Ma is not nothing. In Japanese design, the space around an object is considered as important as the object itself, sometimes more important, because it is the empty space that lets the eye rest and lets the mind settle. A room with no ma is a room that never lets your nervous system exhale. Environmental psychologists studying visual load have found something similar from a completely different angle. Every object in your field of view that has no clear place, no clear use, or no clear meaning registers as a tiny unresolved task for the brain, even when you are not looking directly at it. Your peripheral vision is still processing it. Multiply that by the average number of unnecessary objects in a Western home, and you are carrying a constant, low-grade cognitive tax you never agreed to pay. Removing the right 12 things is not about owning less for the sake of owning less. It is about giving your nervous system back its ma. Here's what I removed, and why each one mattered more than I expected. Thing number 1, decorative throw pillows beyond 2 per seat. I had 11 on one sofa. 11. Each one had to be moved before anyone could sit down and repositioned after they stood up, which means 11 tiny acts of upkeep, multiple times a day, that I had never once counted as labor because they felt too small to notice. In Japan, this falls under a quiet principle called tainai na karashi, a carefully tended life, which holds that anything you own should serve you, not the other way around. A pillow that exists purely to be rearranged is an object that has reversed that relationship. I kept 2 per seat. The sofa now takes 4 seconds to reset instead of 40. That is thing number 1. Thing number 2, duplicate kitchen tools. I owned 4 spatulas, 3 can openers, and 2 sets of measuring cups, because at some point each duplicate solved a momentary problem and then quietly stayed forever. Japanese kitchens are built around a concept called dugu, tools, where each tool earns a permanent place by being used often and used well, never by being almost useful. Duplicates do not just take up drawer space. Stanford researchers studying decision fatigue have found that every additional similar option in a small decision, even something as minor as which spatula to grab, consumes a measurable sliver of mental energy that adds up across a day of repeated micro-choices. 1 good spatula decided in advance. 1 can opener. 1 set of measuring cups. The drawer closes easily now, which sounds small until you live with it for 30 days. Thing number 3, cords and chargers left visible. 6 cords lived permanently on my kitchen counter and 3 more snaked across my living room floor. In Japanese homes, visible wires are considered a disruption of the room's line, the visual flow your eye follows when it moves through a space. A cluttered line creates a subtle sense of disorder even in an otherwise tidy room, because the eye cannot move smoothly from one point to another. I bought a $6 cord box and a few adhesive clips. Every cord disappeared in under an hour. The counter reads as calm now in a way no amount of wiping ever achieved while the cords were visible, because the problem was never the dust. It was the line. Thing number 4, expired or barely used skincare and supplements. My bathroom cabinet held over 30 bottles, most of them used twice and abandoned. This is where the Japanese principle of own.It gets interesting, because most people assume own.It, the regret of waste, means keeping everything. It means the opposite. Holding on to something you are not using is its own form of waste, a waste of the space it occupies and the daily reminder of an unfinished intention every time you open that cabinet. I kept 6 products I actually use. The cabinet closes without resistance for the first time in years, and I no longer feel a small flicker of guilt every morning from a shelf of good intentions I was never going to follow through on. Thing number 5, furniture that blocks a doorway's natural path. I had a side table angled awkwardly near my bedroom door that I walked around without ever consciously noticing, dozens of times a day. Japanese spatial design pays close attention to what is called the dousen, the flow line a body naturally takes through a room. When furniture interrupts that line, the body makes a small unconscious correction every single time, a tiny physical negotiation that costs almost nothing on its own and accumulates into real friction across a day spent in the same rooms. I moved the table 18 inches. The doorway opened completely. I did not realize how much I had been bracing for that table until it was gone. Thing number 6, paper that has no assigned destination. Mail, receipts, school flyers, takeout menus, all landing on the same stretch of counter because none of them had a home to go to. The Zeigarnik effect, the same principle behind why an unmade bed nags at the mind, applies just as strongly to paper. Each unsorted piece is an open loop your brain quietly tracks. I created exactly 3 folders: action needed, keep, and recycle, and a 30-second rule: every piece of paper gets sorted the moment it enters the house. The counter has stayed clear for the entire 30 days, the longest it has been clear in years. Thing number 7, clothes you are keeping for a future version of yourself. I owned clothes from 3 different sizes, none of which fit me as I currently am, each one held onto with a quiet, unspoken hope. This is where own.It gets misapplied most often in the West. We tell ourselves keeping something is respecting its value, when in Japanese practice, an item that goes unworn for years is not being honored, it is being wasted twice, once by the person who could be wearing it now, and once by the space it occupies that could hold something useful. I donated everything outside my current size. My closet, for the first time, only contains clothes I can actually reach for without a flicker of disappointment. Thing number 8, small appliances used less than once a month. A waffle iron, a panini press, a dehydrator, each bought with real enthusiasm and used a combined total of maybe 6 times across 2 years. Japanese kitchens, especially in smaller apartments, operate on a principle of single-purpose justification, where an appliance earns counter or cabinet space only if its function cannot reasonably be replicated by something you already own. I kept what genuinely could not be replaced and donated the rest. My cabinets, for the first time in this apartment, have visible empty space, and that space, the ma I mentioned earlier, is the part that actually changed how the kitchen feels to walk into. Thing number 9, and this is the one I told you at the start would surprise you most, my collection of books I had already read. I am someone who loves books, who associated a full shelf with identity, with being a certain kind of person. Letting go of books I had finished felt, at first, like letting go of who I was. But Japanese libraries and reading culture draw a sharp line between books as objects and reading as an experience, a principle sometimes described as kansho, the appreciation of a thing in the moment rather than the permanent possession of it. The reading already happened. The value was received the first time. Keeping the physical object afterward serves the shelf's appearance, not the reader. I kept 20 books that genuinely changed how I think, and passed the rest to a local library exchange. The shelf looks emptier. The room, strangely, feels fuller, because what remains is only what I actually return to. Thing number 10, gifted items you keep only out of guilt. A vase I never liked, a set of mugs in a style that was never mine, kept for years because removing them felt like rejecting the person who gave them. Own.It, again, is widely misunderstood here. The waste is not in letting the object go. The waste is in the years spent feeling a small private resentment every time you saw it, which is its own kind of cost, paid quietly and repeatedly. I kept the gifts that still bring me genuine warmth and donated the rest, with real gratitude for the gesture rather than the object. Nothing in my home now carries that low hum of obligation. Thing number 11, anything broken that you have been meaning to fix for over 6 months. A lamp with a flickering switch, a drawer that sticks, a chair with a wobble I had simply learned to avoid. Each one is a tiny daily failure, a small piece of the home quietly working against you instead of for you. Japanese household maintenance culture treats this kind of neglect seriously, Because an unfixed object is read as unfinished stewardship, the opposite of the intentional care a home is meant to receive. I fixed what I could in an afternoon and discarded what I could not. My home no longer contains small, scattered evidence of things I have been failing at. And now, thing number 12, the one that is not really a thing at all. The habit of acquiring without a destination. Before I removed a single object, I had to remove this first, the reflexive instinct to bring something into my home before I had decided exactly where it would live and exactly what role it would serve. This is the filter underneath everything else on this list. Without it, the other 11 are just a single cleanout, a 30-day project that quietly refills itself within a year, the way most decluttering does. With it, the 11 become permanent, because nothing new enters my home anymore without first answering one question: where does this live, and what is it replacing? That single rule is the difference between decluttering as an event and decluttering as a way of living. So here is everything in one breath. Throw pillows down to 2 per seat. Duplicate kitchen tools reduced to 1 of each. Cords and chargers hidden from the visible line of the room. Expired skincare and supplements cleared from the cabinet. Furniture moved out of the natural walking path. Paper sorted within 30 seconds of entering the house. Clothes that fit the person you are now, not the one you hope to become. Small appliances that earn their space through actual use. Books kept only for the ones you return to. Gifts kept only for genuine warmth, not guilt. Anything broken either fixed within the month or gone. And underneath every one of those 11, the rule that nothing enters without a destination already decided. 30 days in, my home is roughly 40% emptier in the spaces that matter most: the counters, the cabinets, the surfaces I touch every single day. And the strange part is that I do not feel like I am missing anything. I feel like I can finally see what I have. The space between things, is back, and with it, something I did not expect, a kind of quiet I had stopped noticing was missing. Now I want to hear from you. Look back at this list. Which one of these 12 is sitting in your home right now? The moment I'm describing this, you already know exactly which object I mean. Tell me the number in the comments, 1 through 12. Naming it is the first step, the same way it was for me, because I scrolled past content like this for 2 years before I actually did anything about my own 11 throw pillows. And if this gave you even one thing to look at differently in your own home, send it to someone you know is drowning in a space that has stopped feeling like theirs. They might be one clean out away from a home that finally feels like a place to rest instead of a place to manage. This is Tokyo Horizon. I will see you in the next one.